And good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Perspectives. I am Darren Jaime, and coming up tonight on Perspectives, we go front and center in the world of politics with the presidential election 2008. The primaries are just about wrapping up all across the country, and the question is going to be who is going to be the Democratic candidate in the race for president, with on the Republican side, John McCain, a virtual lock for the Republican seat. The question now becomes, where do we go from here? And exactly on the Democratic side, who is actually going to be the Democratic nominee? Our guest in studio to try to piece a few of these things together is one person that we know knows politics. His name is Marriah Starr. He's a political analyst for us here at BronxNet, and he's been on the Open Show as well, but he's also a professor at Lehman College. And we thank you for joining us, Marriah.
My pleasure.
Let's talk a little bit about where we are right now. As we know, standing right now, Barack Obama is in the lead on the Democratic side with the delegate count. Hillary Clinton not too far behind. Many people are saying that this is pretty much make or break for Hillary Clinton going into Pennsylvania.
It is indeed, because if Barack Obama is able to win Pennsylvania, the last big state, Clinton no longer has any claim to the logic of carrying big states. You know, she carried New York, she carried California, she carried Texas and Ohio. Pennsylvania is the last big state, and she's been saying, hey, if I can carry Pennsylvania, I've got all the big states. Whereas Obama still carried Illinois, Georgia, Virginia, Colorado. Those are also pretty sizable states. So it all comes down to Pennsylvania, which is a critical swing state as well.
Well, when you look at the swing states, as we talk about Pennsylvania being that swing state, a lot of people are saying some of those early swing states for Obama was their first victory in Iowa, getting down there in South Carolina and making victory, and then on that Super Tuesday with him being able to come away with basically an 11-state victory combination. What does that say for him, given the fact that yes, she has won big states, but yet and still states are states, and he's winning in the state count?
Yes, it means that Barack Obama's strategy worked. Barack Obama's strategy mirrored Howard Dean's strategy. Go to all 50 states, compete in all 50 states. Build the organization, and make sure you can go into areas where Republicans have traditionally not seen Democratic competition. Clinton's idea was go to the big states, maximize your vote there, and you've got it wrapped up. So what we're seeing is that Obama made a bet, and it paid off. He decided that the swing states were important, but that the other states were equally important. You can't ignore Idaho. You cannot ignore Nevada or Colorado. So he made a commitment to be everywhere. And that put him in the lead for the delegates, because when you look at the states that provided him with landslide margins, 30 points, 40 points, he was able to rack up huge margins in like Alaska, in Idaho, in Minnesota. And that gave him a huge push for the delegates for the caucuses. So he made a very smart move, and it paid off.
Let's talk a little bit about strategy. You mentioned the word. I want to go right to it. Let's look at the Clinton strategy just a little, or let's first start off with Obama's strategy. Right now on the offensive, asking for those tax records from Senator Hillary Clinton, particularly during the time that's in the White House, since she's been a senator, things of that nature. How much do you think that these tax records or the disclosure of the financials is going to play a part in the questioning of Hillary Clinton's integrity, number one, and number two, do you think that it's going to have any effect with voters?
On the question of Hillary Clinton's integrity, you have to compare it to Barack Obama's integrity. See, Obama has always been about transparency. That has been his big theme, along with having a dialogue. Whereas Clinton has always been about secrecy. The Clinton healthcare plan was hatched in secrecy in 1993. And that's part of the reason why many people think it fell, because the secrecy prevented voters from seeing what was going on. So what this does is her tax returns and her unwillingness to release them plays into the notion that she's a secretive person. So what we're seeing is that Clinton is being portrayed in this character, which may or may not be true, but it demonstrates to voters essentially that she cannot be trusted, that she is the same kind of leader as Bush, the same kind of secretive person as Bush. And they don't want to have Bush again, so they would not want to have Clinton again. But we're talking about Democratic voters.
Right.
So we're saying essentially how would Democratic voters respond to these tax returns? And honestly, no one can really say unless there's something inflammatory in those tax returns. Let's say, for instance, that these returns show Clinton being paid by foreign powers to push for legislation. I mean, there could be something so incendiary that it really damages her ability to communicate with voters. But since we don't know that, the only thing we can say is that her credibility is tied to her reputation as First Lady.
Mm-hmm. And the Clinton campaign has gone on record as saying before the Pennsylvania primaries, there will be a disclosure of those financial records. The question will be whether or not they actually do show up. And of course, all eyes will be taking a look, an in-depth look. I think the longer the wait, the more intense the scrutiny on the part of Hillary Clinton. Now, on the part of Barack Obama, the latest controversy is the comments of his former pastor, Jeremiah Wright, addressing the issue of Barack and race. And if Barack was, quote unquote, Barack was because he's a black person, the things that he had to encounter, his struggles a little bit different. Barack on the immediate defensive now, refuting the comments made by Jeremiah Wright, even though he's a member of the church. How much are Wright's comments and Obama's membership at this church really going to play a part in how people view Obama?
I'm glad you brought that up because Obama gave a speech today discussing his interaction with Wright over the past 20 years. You know, Wright baptized his children, married him to his wife, so Wright has been a critical figure in Obama's life. What Obama has tried to do, though, is use the Wright quotations. You know, Wright said, "God damn America." Mm-hmm. This has been played many times on cable. He's been using that to say, I do not agree with Wright's statements, but let's talk about race. For the first time in this campaign, Barack Obama is taking race head on. And in doing so, he's really engaging in a dialogue that we haven't had for 40 years. And more importantly, he's doing it in a way that we haven't seen pretty much in anyone's lifetime. Mm-hmm. He's taking on a very emotionally charged, difficult issue that really is so charged because of Willie Horton in 1988, because of the idea of an angry black man. I mean, these issues are so critical, and the overtones won't go away. So he must address this. And many commentators looked at his speech today and said he did a masterstroke, a brilliant move. Because what he's done is he has used this critical issue of the right to say, look, all races, black, white, Hispanic, etc., they're all in the same struggle. They're all trying to accomplish the same things. They all have the same grievances. Let's acknowledge the anger that's there on both sides, but let's use our commonalities to work together. And I think that is what people will be looking at from now on. Mm-hmm. He used this speech to frame the discussion in a way that I think will wipe Wright off the map.
A lot of personal attacks going back and forth between the Obama and the Clinton campaign, and we're staying on the Democratic side. We do want you to know that we are not just one-sided. We're coming to the Republicans in just a few minutes, but we're focusing the first segment right now on Democrats. When we talk about the attacks, the personal attacks, are these inter-party attacks going to have an effect on the Democratic Party? The personal aspect, I should say.
Yes. There are many, many people who think that it will. I think it will not. Mm-hmm. See, one of the problems here is that many Democrats are still stuck in 1972 or 1988, both years when Democrats lost. And for them, the older Democrats, they think that personal attacks portray the Democratic Party in a bad light, in the same way that, say, 1968, Chicago portrayed the Democrats in a bad light. Because, if you might remember, there were riots in the streets, there were all these different interest groups trying to attack each other. So the American people were like, oh, wait, that isn't what we want. That isn't the kind of leadership we want. But in this case, it's different. Obama and Clinton are superstars. They are both well-liked in their party. And I think the most important part here is that their attacks aren't necessarily personal. They are thematic. Clinton talking about race. Barack Obama talking about gender. And so we're having the kind of discussion that Democrats love to have, identity. And it's that kind of discussion that people are paying attention to, and not terrorism, not Iraq. And so because the discussion is now about democratic issues, I think that improves the Democratic Party's fortunes, because people are thinking democratic terms.